Hi again and welcome to the channel. My name's Craig Hamilton Parker, and I'm going to be talking to you today about some of the things that are happening in the world and give you some of my spiritual insights and predictions about the way ahead. Well, I'm making this video today on the 15th of February 2021. And I'm going to give you some of my thoughts and insights about what's happening in the world and where we're going and what we can do about it, and some spiritual thoughts perhaps about the way ahead. Now, I've noticed that a number of my predictions have started to come true from the ones I made earlier in the year. So I'll comment on that and expand a bit on some of those things first of all. Now, you may have noticed that in the news recently in the UK, they're talking again about building the bridge. Well, not a bridge, a tunnel, I mean, between Ireland and possibly Scotland or the UK somewhere. And it looks like I was correct about that one, because I talked about how this would be a project that had been shelved that would suddenly come back into the news again during 2021. I made those predictions back in 2019. So I think this will go ahead, as I've said. It looks like it's looking up. There's still a lot of opposition to it, and it may still, you know, fall, but that was one of the feelings I was getting. And I feel this huge infrastructure project is going to be quite transformative for the UK. It's going to be something that will cost far more than it should do, and it don't take a psychic to predict that, but I feel it will help bind the UK together. Talking of which, I also made a prediction about Scotland, you may remember, those that follow this channel a lot, and I said that Nicola Sturgeon would kind of have her name badly blackened by all the scandals that would re-arise during 2021 with Alex Salmon. Now, they were both the heads of the Scottish National Party, for those joining us from overseas that don't know about this. But basically it's happened, and I feel that this will definitely blacken the name of Nicola Sturgeon, and it could even result in Nicola Sturgeon being taken out of power. Now, that's going to cause quite a cat among the pigeons in Scotland, and all these fish have been involved in a lot of fishy things, it sounds to me. So watch out, Nicola Sturgeon, because there's trouble ahead for you, I'm afraid. Right, also other thoughts. The Meghan pregnancy. Now, I predicted that Meghan would have another baby, you remember. Made quite a fuss about that in my other videos. And that's happened. One of the things that amused me actually were the comments in the Star newspaper, because everybody's sort of, oh, wonderful, she's having a baby. But for someone who is supposed to shun publicity, as she claims, and doesn't like intrusion from the press, she announced this on the 14th of February and gives some very movie star style photographs of her laying down with her head on the lap of Harry and the rest of it. And I'm afraid she's seeking publicity again. I do think that with Meghan, it's all going to end in tears. It's all going to end in tears. So what do I predict for the baby? I predict the baby will be a boy, and I also predict that that baby will have American citizenship, of course, and will stand in American politics in the long-term future. May even be involved, possibly with the Democrat Party, to make a stab at being the president. But make a stab at. I don't think they will become the president of America, but I get this feeling about politics there, and that they may get involved in politics. There's going to be an awful lot ahead with the Meghan and Harry story, which really needs its own video, which I will do one a little bit later on, maybe with Jane. Right, so that's one of the other ones. Done that. Meghan, Scotland. Oh, Japan. I said there would be an earthquake that would upset the Japanese Olympics, and I see in the news today also that there's been an earthquake and it's in Japan, and it might stop the construction of the Olympic Stadium, I was reading. So something's going on there. That looks like that was another prediction that I was talking about. I don't I get the feeling that the Olympics might not go ahead still. There's going to be obviously there's major disruption from the virus and all the problems we've had with that, but I don't think Japan's going to be out of the troubles quick enough to be able to hold an Olympics. But let's wait and see. Let's hope I'm wrong with that one, because obviously these are things that would be so good for the world, and that would be a terrible shame if that didn't happen. But anyway, I saw that, and maybe there's more earthquakes to come. Another one, actually, talking about earthquakes. You remember I predicted that there would be a big dam burst in India, in the Himalayas. I talked about. We had it, didn't we? We had that with that big. It wasn't a dam, but it was a glacier that burst and caused flooding. Terrible problems there in India with that. So Trump was acquitted. You might remember I did another video on that recently about Trump, and I said he would be acquitted from the impeachment proceedings. I'm not going to go too far again today with Trump business. I'll probably save those for a little bit later on, because I've kind of said a lot about Trump over the last few videos, but we've not heard the last of him, of course, and I think there's going to be some very interesting politics and things happening with that in the near future, and I will keep us up to date with that as time goes on. In fact, on my patron site, I've been asking the patrons to ask questions and put comments in there, which I will make into separate videos. I make separate videos on the patron site now, just to answer questions that people pose. But if you put any questions in the comments below here of what you'd like me to cover, or things you'd like me to cover in the near future, I will certainly do that. You know, and you can we can raise some issues if you raise them. But if you really want to get your voice heard, join the patrons and put some comments there, because I try to cover everybody's comments in the patrons. Okay, so now the virus is also obviously going to be a major problem in the way ahead. And now my thoughts about this are, now first of all, I don't subscribe to these conspiracy theories, which I would call them. Of course, they dismiss everything as conspiracy theories if you don't agree with it sometimes nowadays in the press. But I don't agree with some of these thoughts people have a bit anti-virus. I actually having my vaccination in a couple of days' time. Jane's had hers. And I was thinking a lot about this whole business with the virus too, you know, because in a way, we've been involved in very much in this idea of what this, you know, the world has been, the spirit of the age for the world for the last year has been one of fear and division and horror, you know. But I see the vaccinations actually as something that is kind of like a unifying thing for the whole world. Because I remember some time ago, going right back into the 1980s, early 1980s, when I was first developing my mediumship. And my teacher then, Peter Close, who was a policeman, actually, he would go into trance, and he'd go into a deep trance, and I often asked lots of questions about the future of the world, you know. His spirit guide used to get a bit annoyed with me doing it, but I insisted, and I pushed. And one of the things that kept coming up was the idea that the world's problems will be solved because of universal problems that affect everybody. And there was a hint in it actually that there would be something like a virus. He said there wouldn't be nuclear world war, but he said there would be world issues, big problems that it would take the whole world to solve. Now the first of those has come surely with this virus, and this actually, when you think about it, it could become a very powerful unifying force for the world. You know, I mean, Britain's soon to hopefully is going to be able to inoculate people very quickly. We're way ahead of the rest of the world, which is a fantastic thing, and you know, I think that's a wonderful thing to everybody that's been fighting to get those vaccines out there. But soon there'll be excess, and soon they can help. Britain can help, and I believe they're going to do it without any profit to help other countries in the world. And other countries will obviously start to be able to develop their vaccines quicker and so forth, and we will eventually wipe it out worldwide, because obviously we can't solve this unless everybody we get full herd immunity, as it were, for the whole world. So I like to think of this as the new spirit of the age that's coming up, you know, one where we're thinking collectively. We're thinking collectively about these type of things and working together. And that's the only way we're ever going to get out of this. We have to think of ourselves as humanity as a whole, not as different people. We are one humanity. There's only one humanity, and we're all part of it. Right? Anyway, I'm off. Some of the other things. I also was concerned some of the, because I write the bits down as they come to me through the week and sometimes after I've had dreams and things like that. I feel that there's going to be problems again. No, I don't like to be anti-China all the time, but I am anti the Chinese rulers and anti the Chinese Communist Party. Not anti-Chinese people, of course, because I've had to do a lot of readings for Chinese people, particularly from Hong Kong, and they're just like anybody else. You know, we're all the same. But I'm a bit anti-China in some respects, because I get a horrible feeling that the powers that be in China are going to be spending money, big money, buying up defence companies and supply chains for the defence companies in Britain, in America, in Europe. And I'm very, very worried about the fact that Europe has sold out again to China. And this to me I get a very, very bad feeling with that, because I think there's going to be a lot of problems all round China in the coming year, and particularly into next year. All the issues around Taiwan, you know, once China knows it's in the position of power, once it knows it can outdo all the other powers, and it will start to rattle its sabre. And as Winston Churchill, I think, said something to the effect, I don't know the quote exactly, he said something about, when the dragon awakes, the whole world will tremble. And that was talking that back down in at the time of the Second World War. He recognised the power of China in the future. So I see that happening, and I hope that there's going to be a lot of resistance to that. And this will be something where I feel Biden will actually gain popularity with both sides of the divides in America, because he will actually be a lot more anti-China than all of us initially expected. And I feel there were going to be some big problems between Biden's administration and Europe over the China deal. And we're going to hear an awful lot more about that, about we should not have Chinese goods. We should not have Chinese, you know, infrastructure type goods. We should not have Chinese weapons being bought up in our countries. So there's going to be an awful lot about that, you know, and also similarly about Europe's dependence on Russian oil. This push towards, you know, I talked about the important that world problems bring us together. Environment is going to be the next one. You know, in my earlier videos, my main one that I make up at the beginning of the year, I'm talking about there's going to be a lot of environmental problems this year, big time. And this is going to be one of those things where we start to think together, and we have to think together, and we have to actually make a stab at dealing with these problems for the long term. But again, China, you know, what about the human rights there? Everybody's still doing trade with China. We got the Uyghur prisoners out there. These things are going to be pushed to the fore much more in the news over the coming months. I think we're going to see much more of that, and maybe the freezing of some Chinese assets to start to force a bit more of a democratic mindset in China. Because in my mind, it's self-evident that China's done a cover-up over this virus. Somebody needs to start compensating the world for the great losses we've made, just purely on a financial standpoint, let alone on the humanitarian damage this has done. Whatever you believe, whether it was in the labs, escape from the labs, which I said in my very early predictions back in 2017, that something would escape from a Chinese lab, you remember. I feel that you know, there's going to be, once the virus is out the way, it's going to be inquest time, and there's going to be an awful lot more in the news about that in the coming months. But nobody ever talks about Tibet, though, do they, either? And that always annoys me, because we talk about the Uyghur prisoners and all the terrible things that China did, but they did massively amount of dreadful humanitarian, anti-humanitarian, horrible, dreadful stuff in Tibet. If you look up the history of that, terrible things. So again, I feel because there's going to be problems. I don't think Europe and America are going to get on as well as they hoped. In fact, I think Europe's going to be in disarray. It's already in disarray a bit with the virus. It's proved that an clumsy sort of bureaucratic system cannot act quickly when you have crises. God knows what they do in a war crisis. You know, we can't have committees for things like that. You need leaders. So I think there could be problems, you know, again, with a lot of political fallout between America and Europe over China. And like I say, I feel there's going to be major problems with China over the coming months, possibly also, you know, serious worries this time about what's going to happen to Taiwan, because that's going to be their first thing in their sights. Of course, there's all Hong Kong to talk about too, but I'll talk about that again. But we've got a Cold War coming up, a new Cold War, a Cold War with China. And this is gradually developing, and it will develop over the time. So that's my thoughts really on most of the things at the moment. You see, there's a few predictions in there, but I don't want to make hundreds and hundreds of predictions for you all the time. These sort of intermediate videos like this about predictions are kind of like, I want to sort of just examine the things that are happening in the world, sort of think about it out loud with you, hopefully get some inspiration from the spirit world as I'm talking to you, and give you some insights, little insights there into some of the things that I've been feeling are coming up in the way ahead for the world. But the most important thing is we have to always look, in a way, look on the bright side of things. I know we live in some most troubled times, almost as more troubled than the times before the Second World War and so forth. But there are good things coming out of this ultimately too. And like I said, I look at this idea that world problems need world solutions and therefore need a certain amount of world cooperation that can lead to world harmony. And that way we can really start to find ways to establish greater peace in the world. And I hope that some of the leaders of the world have the courage of what I think Trump had, which is the courage to take on all these issues that everybody's been sweeping under the carpet. You know, there's other things I can talk about, such as Iran and things like that, which I'll talk about in future videos. But there's going to be a lot of world troubles ahead. A lot of the bad guys are going to be causing more and more trouble, stabbing people in the back through cyber wars and the rest of it. And it's time the world started to think collectively. We can only solve these problems collectively. We can't sort of, one country can't go to war with another country, where a whole lot getting involved nowadays. So world problems create world solutions, and we think like that. And even the environment, which is going to be a major problem in the years ahead, but even in this year ahead, can be an opportunity for us to find ways of dealing with the things where we have to work collectively. We have to work as one. We've got no choice. It's not a voluntary thing. There's no choice about it. And as we progress with more and more disasters, these things will become more and more in the public mind. So in many respects, this whole coronavirus thing, strangely enough, has a silver lining to it. It's kind of been a blessing in disguise in some ways. Because I don't know about you, but I certainly are thinking much more about the world at large when it comes to this illness, aren't you? We worry about it for ourselves when we go shopping and anything like that. But then I worry about the people in India, in Brazil, in all those places where they've got no proper medical care, you know, or their medical care that is decent has been overwhelmed, you know. It has to be done collectively. We have to think as a world, not just as nations, not just as individuals, but we really this time have to make peace the bedrock of the world for the future. Otherwise, we won't have a future. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that's helpful to you. And don't forget, please do put your comments. If you've got any questions, stick them in the comments below, and I'll address some of those. And if you enjoy my work, don't forget to buy my book, Messages to the Universe, that you see up on the screen. That's one of my many books, but it's the one that's most relevant to thoughts about the future of the world, and why I really do so strongly believe that the future can be seen. Okay, thanks for joining me. See you soon. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this video, then follow Jane and I on our adventures around the world by subscribing. You can click that button, or you can click the little bell thingy on the main page, and then you'll get regular updates every time we upload something new. Like the page and also make your comments. We look forward to seeing you next time.